Again, my friends, once more, welcome back to the cellar, back to Leopard Street. This one, doing some more track laying. Let's have a look. This is Leopard Street. Alright, so previously we've had all of this side of the layout working. This bit hasn't existed. This is the point work for the goods yard. I've made a start. 4 points are in. They're not powered, they're wired. And there's a load of dropper wires hanging down under here. I've got some wire here I need to remove because that's going to be part of something else. I'll deal with that eventually. Yeah, so here we have the line which will eventually go around behind the goods shed, the line will go into the goods shed, and the other two goods lines. This side here is going to be the carriage sidings. First job today is going to be to fit this Y point and then the track going down there. So we're going to have a little look at modifying points and exactly what I do to them and soldering the rails up. I have actually solved the problem I've had with soldering to track. So we'll have a look at that in a minute as well. The first job is going to be to fit this point. Now it's up, you can sort of see vaguely where it's going to go. It goes in about here. There's then going to be this one, which will be the job after that. By the time this one is in, the glue on that one will have dried, and I can do that piece of track there, which will, as you can see from down here, entrance to it here, exit down there. That gives me a run-round loop, where Thomas is currently sitting. So yeah, that'll be the goods run round, and it's also the head shunt back into the goods area. So let's get this done. To the desk. All right, so here we are at the desk. So the thing I've done with the soldering iron is change the tip. I was using this little wedge-shaped tip, and I was getting various problems with it. It's not transferring the heat properly. I could solder to rail, I could solder to wire, but I couldn't get them to stick together. This one here, chunky, so that works. I'm holding it. This is currently switched off at the wall, so I can do that. So anyway, I'm going to turn that on. I shall turn that on in a minute. What we've now got is the point. Now, I've never done a Y point before. I've never had one of these. These are slightly different to the other points. The key bit, I'll just grab my kniff. I can show how if you grab one of the other points, probably show the difference quite easily. Yeah, here we go. Let's have one of the others. So here is a normal one. Now, the first difference, and this is one I like, if you look on here, see these little stubs on the sides of the sleeper. I end up having to remove those. The Y point hasn't got them. Save me a job. Brilliant. The other one, if you look on the top, this medium point has got these insulating sections here with a little bridging wire. This is so, if you take this point out of the packet and just use it, it works. The switch rails handle the electrical switching. They're connected under here. So this, in this setting, this entire frog section is connected to the curved stock rail. Now it's connected to the straight stock rail. I remove those little bits there, and when I put the wires in down here, what it does is mean these rails here are now connected to their stock rail, so the switch this is no longer functioning as a switch. It's just moving the wheels about, and you put a separate feed on here. Come back to that because I'm going to do that one later. This one, slightly different. The frog doesn't have that isolating capability. That is slightly annoying, but I'm going to have to live with it because that's what the point is. This means this will always be trying to switch based on what's down here. As such, I may have to wire this one up slightly differently. Normally, I just have a relay switching down here. The problem is if I tell the relay to switch while that's still in contact, it's going to cause a problem. It's going to cause a short circuit. So what I may end up having to do is put a second relay in. The first one turns the frog off. I then tell the point to move. Then I can turn this back on. I'm hoping I've got enough relays to do it. So essentially I'm going to have to, sequence will go, I need to move this, click, frog is no longer connected to anything. Change the polarity, click, frog is now connected. Do a little think about that. It would be nice if this had the insulating gap, but as you can see, there isn't really space to do it. They'd have sort of had to do it down here, and then the switch rails would be a bit weird. So, yes. Anyway, so on here, the feed rails only connect to these outer rails here. They don't connect to the one in the middle, which has got its own feed, although I could actually put the frog connection on that. I might do that, actually. Put frog, solder the frog wire directly to the rails instead of using this little this little bit of wire here. Where's the alternative? It'd be cutting it about there. Awkward to do. I don't have a rotary cutter I could do that with. It would make a massive gap. It would make a massive mess. And then these rails aren't particularly well bonded. So, job one. Score the underside of these. And for this, file. And it should fit in here. It usually does. It may take a little bit of just finessing until it's basically very, very slightly too wide. So what I'm doing is running it through here until it fits. And all this is doing is scoring at the bottom of the rail, which will help solder key to it. Now, take that out of there. Still not quite done it right at this end. Look, that's better. So yes, now I was down here yesterday. I did a chunk of this. I didn't film it just because I wanted to get on with it. So I'm going to do this bit today. I'm going to score that bit in the middle. I think I will put the frog wire across there. She'll think. Right. That's that bit. I'll turn the soldering iron on at this point. So we'll start that warming up. So we now need the bits of wire, and these are just 1602 feed wires. Here, I only need a very small amount of the end cleaned off at a right angle. So we're going to tin this first. So let's have a little sausage of blue tack just to hold the thing. That's that one. Do the same with the brown. And then the green will need a little bit longer. I'm going to use the little wire. It's how I've done all the rest of the points. I'm going to do the same with this one. As I say, I'm going to have a little bit of a think about how to wire this up. I don't want to use the point switch rails to handle switching electrical power. Don't like doing that. What I've found in the past, especially this is one of the things that killed my N-gauge layout. It's all well and good while it works, and then it stops working. Just trying to get that with a bit of blue tack over the top of it. That'll do. Right. Now we shall tin these. Clean the iron off. What I'm stabbing it into is this. Allegedly brass filings. Brass is expensive. That's from China. It could well be anything. So, tin the tip of the iron. Works quite nicely. And we just come onto here. Touch against the side of that until I can melt solder onto the whole wire. Don't need a huge amount of it. What this is doing is holding the different strands of the wires together. But it also means when I come to solder the rail, the wire has got solder on it, which will melt and help conduct the heat. So, let's zoom onto this one. And it just flows through there quite nicely. A little bit blobby, but it'll do. Get that out of the way. That's the next thing I've got to do is the same, well, sort of the same, tinning the bottom of the point. I'm just going to remove the slightly warm blue tack off these bits of wire. Just because I don't need that on there. Right, I can go over there where it's out of the way, put bits of wire there. So what I need to do now is tin. I only need to tin these outer ones, because as I say, I'm going to use this wire here, which folds up to connect the green wire to. Also need tinning. It comes with a rather long wire, which I'll just get rid of, most of, and just leave just stub. You can see that coming at the end. So let's do this. I'll then have to work out which, this is the important bit, work out which way round the wires need to go, because that does matter. Well, I know where the green one's going. Right, so that, a bit of solder on there, into there. There we go. I've got a little blob of solder in there. I'm just going to allow it to spread out a little bit more. And do the same on this one. There we go. Right, now this is going to be in that way. So this side here is brown, this side here is blue. So I'll do the blue wire first. So again, get the soldering iron with a dab of solder on the end of it. And then get my little piece of wire here, which I need to wiggle around on my hand a little bit. So the problem with this wire is obviously it's got a bit of weight to it, so it wants to, it'll go where it damn well pleases. And then this should be a case of touch that onto there, press down gently, that should melt into the bottom, hold that, and with luck, that's now connected. Now what I was finding previously was it would sort of connect, you'd pull gently and oh, it would just come straight off. Which was, not to put too fine a point on it, exceedingly annoying. To the point I gave up. Key point with this thing, the whole thing, it's a model railway, it's supposed to be fun. The moment you're doing something and it ceases to be fun, stop doing it. Because I can't think of a quicker way of making you lose interest. Put that onto there. Melts that, melts all that together. Just a second, and that hasn't stuck properly because I didn't leave the iron on long enough. There we go, that should be better. And it is. And that's that done. Right, now I need to tin this, to get the wires I've just fitted out of the way. Right, I now need to tin this vertical wire here. This is going to be the green one's going to go. In theory, you shouldn't have to tin this one. In practice, you do. Basically, it's already a bare wire. The problem is if you don't tin it, you tend to find wires won't stick to it. Whether it's a coating on it or what, I have got no idea. There we go. And then the awkward bit with this is you have to hold this against that wire to get it all to melt together. But, and this is the awkward bit, it springs. And because it springs, it doesn't want to stay where you put it. So I'm just going to get rid of that off there. Right, that was too much solder on there. Right, blue tack. There and there. That should now hold that in place. You can see that. There we go. So again, a bit more solder on here. You don't need much. In fact, you don't want too much. The more solder you've got on it, the harder it gets to heat up. So that you just have to hold against the other wire. Get it all to melt. And I know that's not, mechanically, that's not a very good join. So I'm going to do a little bit more just at the top. Right, soldering iron back and we shall have a little look. Now you see that is not held on properly. That needs solder along its whole length. So I'm going to redo that. Reason being, once this is fitted, the last thing you want is this wire to come loose, because if it does, you've got to lift all the track to get at it again. It's one of the ones that's really awkward to get at if it doesn't work properly. So I'm going to come down here and adjust my lamp so I can see what I'm doing. And I'm going to come back in and just remelt this. What I'm actually trying to do is I want the solder to flow properly around the little single core wire, which it's not doing. Now I need to fill in the bit in the middle. Twist that so I can see what I'm doing, and then come at this. Right. I think that's got it. Right. You just turn the soldering iron off. I will need the soldering iron again, but I'm going to sort that out. I'm just a little tug test on that and it works. What I now need to do is put a piece of heat shrink tubing around that. And I must say, when I started this, I didn't realise I was going to actually have to power this one a bit differently to the rest of them. I sort of hoped, medium radius electrofrog, I sort of hoped it would be the same as all the others, but apparently it's not. Right, so a bit of heat shrink on here. What this does is this also helps support the join, and I use the side of the soldering iron just to apply a little bit of heat to it, which, well, as the name suggests, when it gets hot it shrinks. So just do that. And at the top part of this is just about getting it to grip a little bit better. So this thing comes around here, and we can do that bit as well. Obviously you need to be slightly careful, because what you don't want to do is heat this up enough that it melts the solder again. Right, that's that. What we now need to do, free it from the blue tack, one other little modification, which is a mechanical one rather than anything else, as I'm going to remove these side pieces here. So we get rid of that. This is purely cosmetic. I just think it makes the point look a lot better. I don't need these bits because I'm obviously going to be driving the point from underneath. Ready to install. Let's go install it. Alright, so the next bit is to install this. First thing I need is another fish plate or two to fit onto it. If I can get my fingers into the pot to take them out. Around here. Yeah, I've got one of these. The problem is I often can't quite get my fingers into the little spaces. Now the reason for this is what I'm doing is I'm making all of the points electrically their own thing. They're not being fitted as separate blocks. I mean, like, all of this is going to be one electrical block. But by fitting these little nylon fish plates, that one goes on there, it'll work better. I need two metal ones for this end now. Yeah, I should have a couple of those in here. And these really are a pain in the neck to pick up. So I tend to use a pair of pliers, in this case a pair of cutters, and then just fit these onto the rails if I can. And when you fit them, just check. It's very easy for it to go under the rail instead of onto the rail. You won't notice, and I've had a few of these on the layout, you won't notice until you come to try and run a train over it, when it will... So I'm just trying to pick another one up currently and failing. Come here. Right. Yeah, you won't notice until you try and run another train over it, and then there'll be a bump, and then it'll derail, depending on the locomotive. It doesn't want to go in that way. This way. That's better. Doesn't have to go all the way on. So what I now need to do is work out exactly where I need to drill the holes for that. So I should find a pen. Okay, so that is that sleeper. They are there. And the one that really matters is the hole for the actuator. Because if you get that lined up wrong, well, a good game. So that is going to go there. It'll be a nice big hole. Do that one first. And yes, this is upside down. However, what I'm trying to do is just mark out exactly where I need those holes to be. And that one is slightly off-centered there. Should work. Right. And again, you need to be careful with that that little one in the center. Next check, make sure there's nothing under there. I know there isn't because I move stuff around, but I'm going to check anyway. Then, Mr. Goggles. Did get a comment on a video a while back. Oh, do YouTube make you wear those and show them? No, I just do it because it's what you do. And that into there. This is a 10mm drill bit. Pardon the noise. And it's not a particularly sharp 10mm drill bit, which isn't ideal, but it's the 10mm drill bit I've got, so it's the 10mm drill bit I'm using. The others are going to be 4mm. Used to use 3. The reason I'm using 4 is it's a sharper drill bit. It's basically that, so that's there. And you see these go through a little bit quicker. That goggles off so I can see what I'm doing again. That is a drawback of wearing them. Little mini new. Alright, now one other thing I do is, so I just run my hand over, that's raised. This has separated the cork from the stuff underneath, so I'm going to take a knife. And I'm just going to cut out a section of this. As you can tell, I'm not doing this particularly accurately because I don't need to. What that means is I can come in here and I can lift out, hopefully, this bit of cork. I can now clean underneath it, which is the next job. Right, that needs a dab of Copydex. Not much, just a little bit. This is just to stick the piece of cork back in. What you do is some of that around here, like so. Go all the way around, might as well. Now that is then back into there, like that. I'll put it in the right way around, it'll fit better. There we go. That's that. Right. Next is the point. So, blue wire is that hole. Brown wire is that hole there. You can see those. My arm out of the way. Green wire is this hole. Now, when you're putting a ladder of points together, one of the problems with doing this is the wires never quite wanting to line up properly. I'll grab all of those and drag those down. Because this now needs to fit onto here, but I've got to do it. Now this little bit will... Yeah. You've got to do this without basically breaking any of the wires, which is slightly annoying. Has that gone on? I think that has actually gone on. Right, so that goes down and then twists over there like that. And then I find the actuator hole works. What I've got is a piece of wire here. You can go through there, the right way around, go through the little hole, and then I just I'm just testing it. I'm also looking down the hole. That's all right. It's not lined up brilliantly. Just twist it round a little. Effectively, this tiny piece of rail here is a little bit too short. I'll have to live with it, however, because that's all soldered together. So yeah, so bring a wagon over. Or do we roll over? Pretty well. That is going to need pressing down. I'll put some weight over it. You see, what I need to make sure is it's not going to derail going over these joins. But I also need to make sure that end has got to stay that way a little bit, which is part of the problem. Could I probably can, and I'm probably going to. I'm going to do is lift that out. Come here. Right, there we go. What I've got, if I just take, that one can stay on. If I just take that off, we come over here and we look down vertically. This rail here is slightly longer than that one. That needs dealing with. So find my wire track cutters. I may regret doing this because it's going to make putting the fish plate on a little bit more awkward, but come in here and just reduce the length of that a little. These cutters are not in perfect condition anymore. They've done sterling work, to be fair to them. Right, that's that. And the question is, can I get this fish plate back on? Questions to which the answer is possibly not. Yeah, not going to get that back on without bringing the file over. Essentially what's happened is that has now put a burr on the bottom of the rail, which, as you can see, the file is catching on, which is what I want it to do. Just need to smooth that out a little. Not to be perfect, it's just basically so I can get the fish plate on. Sometimes you get a bird wire, it doesn't want to go on properly like that. That's what I meant. You think it's gone on, but it hasn't. It's gone on sideways. A better way. It's one of these awkward things. Awkward thing with the layout is trying to find places I can put a camera so you can see what I'm doing. Like so, where my hands aren't always totally in the way. Yeah, right. Let's try a little trick, which I hope will work. Pull that way a little. Basically, I'm going to put the fish plate on another piece of track, which should be able to hold it while I slide it onto here, is the idea. I'm going to end up lifting this point next to it slightly. Yeah, there's the ruler. So that's the easy way of sliding these up. Which naturally, as a result, is nowhere to be seen. suspect it's probably on the desk. Anyway, so I'm just going to use this blade under here a little bit. I'm just going to lift this slightly. Reason being, so I can get the file under here just about the way. So I'm going to be resting my arm on a blade, which I don't particularly want to do. Yeah, it feels like the bird's gone. So with a bit of luck, oh yeah, this can come back in. That one. I think that's on. Right. Try again with the point. The reason for this, I want to close the gap in the rails up as much as possible. So that can go into there like so. Now these aren't going to be powered up today. Not in this video anyway. Well, not be powered up today at all, full stop. That's possibly a... this I'm actually filming this on Tuesday, so this is the video that's going out tonight. And down we go. Right. Back in there. As expected, I'm now going to have to move the holes slightly. Not a massive job. This is just about making the wire slots move slightly. Now, hopefully the actuator hole I don't need to move, but we'll find out in a sec. It's obviously I've just moved the whole point slightly this way, so I'm going to have to make those holes accommodate the fact it needs to move slightly this way. Again, this is one of these, do it now because you can't do it later. I mean, I could have get this wire to go back in this hole without immediately poking straight out again. Get in there. I could have left this. Right. Yeah, could have left this. It might have caused a problem later. It might not. Could have been no trouble at all. However, it might have been, and if it was, once this has got other tracks stuck to it, it would be remarkably difficult to do anything about. So that goes into there like that. That's that way. And now these joints here are much, much more closed up than they were. These things will run nicely, and the actuator, I think, will work. It might not, however. I might have to lift this again and just re-drill slightly, but we shall see. Nope, I think that'll work fine. So, let's fix it down. And that is my good old friend Copydex, which, as you've seen, made lifting this point over here remarkably straightforward when it needed to be. If this was stuck down with PVA, lifting that would have been a messy job because it would have involved hot water, it would have involved all sorts of stuff. So that goes there. That now needs a weight putting on it. And the weight it's going to get is going to be a couple of coils of wire. One on that one on that one. And while that dries, I've got another point to do, which is the point that's going to fit here. So I'm going to do this one. And because while this is the point behind why I'm doing these in this order. Obviously I need a point down that I can stick a point to. If I do them in this order, so I'll fit one in its entirety. While I'm soldering to this point here, bring you back around here. Yeah. That one dries while I'm soldering to this one. By the time I come back, that one's dried enough, I can fit this point. Now this one's crossing a board edge. So what I'm doing, at the moment it's got sleepers. There's going to be another point on this end. What I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the sleepers from this. This length really actually should be on the other point. So if I do that now, reason being I want this one down first, because then I can take these off and I've got something to connect it to, rather than having a point sitting loose, which I don't particularly want. So that slides on like that and then pulls out of there. Easy. So I can fit that one. Then when I come to fit this one, I can take all the sleepers off, fit this, super glue sleepers like I've done, turn that round a bit, with this one, which was all done yesterday. So this is the next one. This is the same, so I'm not going to show this again. The difference is this one has got these little bits in here that need removing. They're not hard to remove. Well, I say they're not hard to remove. They're probably going to prove incredibly difficult now I've said that. What they are is just a little piece of wire that has been spot welded to the rail. And basically you wiggle it about a bit until the connection breaks. I'm going to go solder this one up. I'm going to come back, I'll fit this, and then we'll carry on. Okay, here we are. Now this is as far as I'm going to get for today in this video. But we now have the goods yard point work, which is all of that installed. So give me the 4 goods yard roads. I have these bits here, which are going to give me the 3 carriage sidings. It's all useful. And this joining piece has been fitted, which completes the run round. Now, none of this is powered up yet. None of it is. None of these points have got servos in, with the exception of that one. Just had one for a while. That's for another video. Aim of the next video is going to be solder all these rails. That needs doing. I've got some sleepers to super glue in. I'm going to try and do that this evening. Failing that, I'll do it tomorrow morning. That needs time to cure. All these rails then need soldering. That needs time to cool. I can then saw them. Once I can saw them, I can split the boards again, and this board can come out and we can do a bit of wiring. Then this board can come out and do a bit of wiring. I have to do some trains around first. I've also added these 2 signals. Obviously, they're not wired up yet either. This is platform 4's departure signal. This is the goods yard departure signal. In theory, it needs a ground signal or a calling on, so that can be on red, but a train can pass it to access these 2 goods roads. In practice, it's not getting that. So yeah, there we go. But that's it for this video. That is a little look at track laying. And that's it for point work. These are the last points. This one that went in, this is the final point on Leopard Street. There won't be any more point work, unless I do something around there, which I don't think I will do. So that is that. I've got 1 length of track left, which, as you can see, is nowhere near enough. I'm going to have to go out and get some more. Yeah, that one is probably going to end up connected here, and it'll just be the one that runs around parallel. It just gives me a siding. When all this is powered up, I'll finally be able to bring goods trains up here. Even if I can't service them properly, I can bring them in, I can run around, I can turn them. Off we go. So that'll be the next video. Well, powering the track up will be the next video. The point servos aren't here yet, so I can't add that bit. I think I've got 1 or 2. I'll have to have a little look. I might see if I can power up a couple. But in the meantime, enjoy the rest of your week. I'll catch you in the next video. Thank you very much. Likes, comments, shares, etc. more than welcome. Kelly, I did cut my fingernails in the end. I needed to. Yes, quite right. Smudge hasn't been down here today. She was down here when I was laying these earlier points. Yeah, anyway. Enjoy the rest of your week. I'll catch you in the next one. Thank you very much, and goodbye.